We made a blind jump. How did they...
Get here first? The Covenant ships have always been faster. As for tracking us all the way from Reach, at light speed my maneuvering options...
Hey everybody, it's Aaron here again with Duffy, and we are here again guys to talk our retrospect review of the Halo series. So we've already done Halo Reach, we are going in chronological order, so now we're at the game that like started it all for us, man. Halo Combat Evolved.
The one, yeah, for sure.
The one Halo to rule them all.
Right. Let's thaw him out. Okay. Bringing low-level systems online. Cracking the case in 30 seconds. He's hot! Blowing the pins in 5!
I don't think we need to really like give like recap on anything for the game itself. I mean, it's been 20 years at this point.
I'm fairly certain, yeah. If somebody hasn't already tried to play it, they've probably seen it, they've heard about it, something. It has a lot of significance as well as one of the pretty much the console shooter that pretty much drove the whole plot forward for how console shooters are today.
Exactly. So 20 years ago, if you remember, when this game first came out, or let me rephrase, when you first played it, what did you think? Do you remember what you thought back then when you first played this game?
Yeah. So I had originally got it just because I think I was at Toys R Us and I had no idea. I was looking to buy a console. I think it was probably my birthday or a Christmas gift, and I went into the store and one of the employees there recommended, Halo, and I was like, "What is this?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's a game that's kind of like Starship Troopers." And at the time, that was probably the only thing I had ever heard of. So I was like, "Well, dude, I kind of liked that movie." So you shoot aliens, it's a shooter. He talked it up because he had already been playing it. And when I first got it and I picked it up as my first game that I ever played on the original Xbox, at first, I really liked how clean a lot of the gunplay was, the movement. It seemed really pretty because at the time, at least for the time of the game, there wasn't a lot of atmospherics like the way that was presented in Halo and how pretty a lot of those like far-reaching spaces and the draw space that you had with the sun. And, Bungie, as you've seen over the years, they have a real knack at just creating some of the most beautiful atmospherics in games. And it definitely, their first entry was no slouch in that department. But I think the turning point for me that really cemented the game as something really special was when you get to the part in the plot where you meet the Flood. And it sort of opens up the game into something so much more. And I love games that do that. I really do, where, like 1 foot of the story, but then there are elements and aspects that somehow make you know that you only know a foot of an entire mile. And there's so much more, other races, other rings, and that's just what made the game really amazing to me. And replaying it again was even better.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how you say that story, because like I remember, again, 20 years ago, we were in Corpus Christi, and it was me, my mom, and one of my best friends at the time, and we were at Sam Goody. I think it was like Sam Goody's or something like that. And it was one of those, like, the Xbox had just gotten released. No one really, it wasn't like selling off the shelves like they are now. It was one of those like, hey, we have some and we're running this special. If you buy it, you get to pick like from these 5 games, you get to pick 3 of them. And it was literally, for me, it was luck of the draw. I picked Halo. I picked not Ori, but it was like Odd something, some other like RPG, and I can't even remember the third one. And literally, it was just, I played Halo the moment I got it, because I was like, the guy was like, oh, it's a shooter game. I was like, oh, okay. I had already played GoldenEye from the 64, Perfect Dark from the 64. I don't remember if we played The World Is Not Enough game. I don't know if that came out yet or not. I think that was later, but I remember playing the other 2, and I was like, cool, like I'll play a shooter. This sounds fun. And
there was nothing even like it at the time.
No,
I mean, Call of Duty didn't even come out till like 3 years later or something. I think the first Call of Duty was like late 2003, 2004. So that was at least almost 3 years after Halo released,
Yeah, because they followed up on what the first-person genre was. Like Halo, GoldenEye kind of helped set, like, this is what first-person shooters are. Perfect Dark kind of just took that and said, well, we're going to try to add a story to it. and then Halo was like, no, we're gonna show you how to make a real story, and we're still gonna keep that first person shooter to it.
Exact. And the multiplayer was just a phenomenon. Yeah,
The
hooking
LAN
up
parties, man.
4
Like,
Xboxes. Yeah, you remember we hooked up
yes.
like these. We rented these like 50 at the time. That was huge. But those, I mean, we're talking TVs that were the size of a truck and
Mhm.
rear projections, and we're inside of a church, mind you.
Oh, I
And
forgot about those.
that was one of my favorite times. We had some of the football team there. You know, Raymond, a bunch of other guys were there. We had like
Yes.
those big dudes. You know, Trent, Randy, and then all of a sudden, we have everybody probably not saying the nicest things inside of a church. And then we're using the little stages where they have the pedestal and the pastors there preaching. But
Yeah.
instead of a pedestal, we have TVs and an Xbox separated by curtains so that way nobody screen watches.
Yep.
And yeah, just a bunch of cables hooked up to a single router sitting
All
on a
the
chair
little-
on the center.
The crappy little Caesar's
Beanbag.
pizza sitting there.
Dude, but that was the best. And then of course Chris's mom bringing in the brownies and all the snacks.
I remember that. I think I only went to like 1 or 2 of those because that y'all did it when I was working at the time. Like most of the time I was at the bowling alley still.
But dude, it was crazy, man. It was those were the days. And
Yes.
if the game alone didn't sort of seal you in to let you know that you were playing something really special, the multiplayer and the experience and just the couch co-op. I mean, I think back then we didn't even have achievements, right? Achievements
No.
were introduced later in Xbox. So I mean, people were like, we were trying to do legendary and find glitches, and there was no skulls or anything like that. There was little secrets, but they didn't give you the benefits that they have now in the anniversary collection. You know?
No, not at all. You didn't have the terminals, the skulls, none of that. Like,
That's
you
right.
didn't
the
even
terminals.
Yeah, you didn't even know about like the glitch to get the 3 guns in the first level unless you like hunted around online and like dug around for hours and hours to find it. It's like, holy crap. I
Yeah,
think
or
that
just finding like banshee glitches where you could just fly outside the stage.
I think that was the best thing. It was such an open world, even though it was like you're not supposed to leave. Oh, we're gonna leave, and like I think I like the maps. I want to kind of start on the multiplayer for this. I think I like the maps on Halo 1 a little bit better for the snipers because they were so huge, like Sidewinder, Blood Gulch. I remember it was me and another guy would always try to snipe each other because we were helping the teams out when it was red versus blue. It was like, okay, Aaron's perched up and God, who was the other guy? I can't remember his name now. I want to say it wasn't Justin, it was his buddy, but I can't remember his name.
Oh, Eric?
Was it Eric?
I mean,
No, it wasn't Justin and Eric. It was he drove a Hummer, I think.
Louis?
Yeah, it was his buddy. Tall guy.
Oh, it was either probably Randy or Trent or Louis. I mean,
I think it was Trent because I remember it was always me and him perching up trying to snipe each other and then trying to help our team. And it's like we're so busy shooting each other and missing and trying to hit each other that's like we rarely kill the other teammates. And it's like, oh well.
yeah, and this was even before they had. I mean, they did establish Xbox Live shortly after, but the ability of how you played back then was all through XP Connect.
Oh
and
my
that
god, I
was-
hated that thing. Don't shoot will lag. Don't rush will lag. The Needler don't use it.
And at the time, Sitch was probably the only one of us, at least from my friends, that had like a really good connection, like Roadrunner grade. So
Yes.
yeah, we're like, dude, if we want to play, it has to be at Sitch's house, man.
Yeah, because I remember me, Sevi, and him would go try to play in his room, and it was like, okay, don't rush, we're gonna lag, don't do it. Okay, let's play. Oh, who grabbed the Needler? And then it's like it lags,
dude, and
you're
then
done.
that small like little twin bed and everything. It was
Yes,
like 4
bro.
guys sitting on top of each other.
Yes, it's like, well, we gotta play it though. Those were the
Yeah.
days, dude, man. So this game obviously is integrated into our lives, for 20 years. So
A lot of nostalgia for sure.
it is. And now I want to talk about that. So now we're 20 years later. We replayed the whole game. We played it on hard, right? I think we played Reach on normal, and this one we played on hard.
Yeah.
And only reason we really played on Legendary, buddy, is because we didn't want to spend hours and hours and hours on it. Thank you, Library, which gives me PTSD still to this day.
Trying to do a lasso or something crazy.
I want to, but no. Not for this at least. But yeah, guys, so we played it on hard. We were able to go through all the levels. Now we played the anniversary. We didn't play the original way it looked. We played the anniversary look, so we got some of the nicer graphics, some of the other little Easter egg stuff with the terminals and everything. What do you think now of this game? Now we played it through, what's your honest opinion now?
Impressive. And I think I was able to feel like I got an even better experience. Nostalgia aside, I think now that I'm older, I think a lot of the concepts and just reading into things. I mean, there's so much more. I mean, it's hard to detract away from the nostalgia of the game, of course, but it's also important to remember that at the time Halo was released, the novels didn't even exist.
Mm-mm.
The context came after the game,
Mm-hmm.
and the books that Eric Nylund and all that stuff that came after, they really helped develop the world. And now in this anniversary collection, you have, like you said, those terminals, and I think that is helping to sort of, as you play the game, give you some backstory and fill in some of the context of where the original game failed to sort of, unless you read the books, really help connect a lot of the different pieces and the ships, the Covenant, some of the driving narratives of looking at whether the Covenant had this directive or what the Pillar of Autumn just finished doing from the slip space, or
Yeah.
and then Bungie went ahead and created an entirely new sort of engine in the background as well.
Yeah.
Specifically to accommodate this kind of background where you could switch between the old graphics and the new graphics.
Yeah, and I think that was an amazing thing to do by adding that little part. Like, do you want some of the nostalgia feel, or do you want this amazing look to it? What do you feel like? And I like that, and I think I agree with you. When we saw Halo, they did the Pillar of Autumn jumps out of that slip space jump, and we don't know where they came from. We don't know what happened. All we know is you're on this ship, and for some reason Master Chief's inside cryogenic sleep, and we need to wake him, and that's all we got. And then you jump into the world, and like you said, we get the Covenant, we get everything else. So I think Bungie played it smart. They literally left the ability to create this universe essentially from a video game. Then we got, like you said, then we get the backdate of, okay, well, here's Reach, here's what's going on here, here's where the Pillar of Autumn was in the book. Eric Nylund writes it, and then he writes the Flood book, which is based on the game, and it's like, oh, okay, well, he's giving some more details of what's going on. Actually, no, that wasn't him. I forgot who wrote the second one. He wrote the third one.
Yeah, the first and the third, and then I think the
He wrote,
Halo
the
books
fifth or
have
something.
they've had so many authors now. I don't know.
Yeah,
They've
and
got like 27 books now or something.
oh my gosh, yeah, we were talking about that last time, I remember, and it's like, oh my god, they have so many. And it's like, I think they did this right. Now we get to go back years later, and I think we both have played it throughout our, every now and then we'll go play it, I'm sure, between then and now. And I like having that knowledge. I like knowing, oh yeah, we're jumping away from the slip, coming out of slip space because Reach was just destroyed and all this, and then we got to play the game. Okay, cool, yeah. Noble
Because you
6
remember
did that.
how kind of like back then, I remembered, and this was even before, of course, we've had the Master Chief Collection, but I vividly recall that amongst ourselves when we were much younger, 20 years ago, we used to debate and talk about like, hey man, what do you think like the Forerunners and all this talk about it? Like, who do you think they really are? And what's the technology? Do you think we'll ever see them in a game? And especially the way it leaves you at the end, after they use the core to sort of blow up the Pillar of Autumn in order to destroy the ring, there is indication that right then and there in the conversations from the Covenant cruiser with the Truth and Reconciliation, that they're like talking about, well, we're just gonna have to go to the next ring. This was just installation 40 or 04 or something like that. And I just, when you hear that, that's another aspect in the story that is even further expanding the world, and definitely leading up to what after Halo 1, which was Halo 2, launched Bungie into a multi-billion-dollar franchise because it was massively successful as a follow-up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. I think it was the perfect setup. They were easily trying to say, okay, well, we're going to leave these little plot holes here to fill in later with like the books or even a second video game. Because when this game came out, they even said we didn't know they were going to make a second one. They weren't sure yet. They didn't know where this was going to go. Originally, the game was supposed to technically be an RTS game. And that's what it originally started at. And then Microsoft bought Bungie essentially and said, okay, well, we want you to make something different. And then that's when they went from there. And it's like, oh, okay, well, let's see what they got. And it became this huge phenomenon. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's amazing.
And it's so cool too, because they like where they drew a lot of inspiration from was like things like Ringworld or Starship Troopers, like I mentioned, or they even said that a lot of the ideas around the Forerunners and their technology was pretty much derived from the Bible and Norse mythology. And you can kind of see that, like especially with some of the names, that we've
Mjolnir.
learned now, like the Viking. Yeah, exactly. Mjolnir, all that stuff, I think a lot of that, when you reach into other aspects of stuff that has very deep, very expansive lore, it makes it really easy to make the world that you're trying to build feel that much more lived in, or really build out a lot of that. Which I'm guessing now, if we look back at it, even though I haven't read them all, but 27 books later, I'm sure they've had an ability to build some really good lore behind it. It's just making it digestible for the average player is the thing that I still got to see if that works out.
And that's where I'm curious they're gonna go to next. Like we've said, now we're going through the main games first. So we're gonna go Halo 2 next. But like right now we are talking about Halo Combat Evolved. So it's like we said, we have all this knowledge now, and I think the experience is becoming better and better each time you play. And I really don't know much more to say except this is still, for me, a beautiful, almost perfect game. Now, the default controllers were clunky for us, I think. I think that was probably the first mission or two that I was fighting was the controller, because I literally just didn't want to get off default because I was too lazy.
Yeah, because one thing I will say, Call of Duty has definitely innovated on the standardization of what a lot of people expect your typical FPS to sort of, what your reload is, what your crouch, these quick mechanics, where they've definitely taken some of the groundwork for console gameplay that Halo laid out, the foundation, and they've improved on it for sure. So that was definitely the most apparent thing that you can see right away. But I will say that one thing that I think Halo did really impressively, and even all the way up till Halo 3 and others, is in Halo 1, they had, I think for the time, right, they had such a good variety of enemies with unique AI, unique approaches to behavior. The Hunter never fought like a Jackal.
No.
The Jackal didn't fight like grunts.
No,
the elites were really meant to be your equals.
Yeah.
They had shields and they used cover. It was impressive, and it was awesome to see that AI evolve and add more to it, with more creatures and later pieces of the Halo franchise. But Halo 1 on its own, I thought, looking back at that, and then the Flood, how they were just sort of like, I mean, for lack of a better comparison, they're pretty much like running in blind, kind of like oh man, I'm trying to think of I can't think of the term for it, but I mean, they just didn't care for no sake for their own, or something like that.
And I think I agree with you on that. I think that was the first game where it's like Call of Duty and other army games, the characters all run the same. They have the same weapons basically. They're very generic. It's very like, oh, here's an assault rifle. Oh, they don't run out of bullets, so it's not like they're going to switch to sidearms. It doesn't divert. And then this one, you got your grunts, your jackals, and your hunters, and your elites. And then you got the cloak elites who kind of act a little bit differently. They try to get a lot closer to you. Then you got the sword elites who are going to, try to stab you. Then you have the fuel rods, which I don't...
Yeah, the elite versions of the grunts. Yeah, it came out on this one.
I couldn't remember.
We died plenty of times by them.
Oh, yeah. And then, that's only the Covenant. We're not counting the Flood and how any of the Flood react to you. We're not counting...
And how they completely change their behavior when any of those people are operating turrets or vehicles, like how they drive Banshees and how they drive Wraiths and Ghosts and you name it. They all had different approaches. And I really, for the time that this game came out, I couldn't really think of any other game, like even Perfect Dark. I mean, granted, you are just fighting other NPC human players, but the variations in enemies you would fight, they didn't have a lot of variety. They typically do the same thing. They look for occlusion, take cover, shoot. And if you compare it to other maybe titles at the time, like in GoldenEye, like you said, there wasn't really a lot of stuff looking back at 64 days where there was, still, again, they take cover and they shoot from cover. You didn't have such a wide and varied variety of NPCs and different gameplay mechanics involved with so many different enemies and enemy types.
Exactly. And again, like we said, with GoldenEye, even then it's just the same guns. They did the same thing every time until you got into multiplayer. Then there was a little don't pick odd job, and then everybody fights, but it's all generic. And then this one we get the Flood, we get Covenant, and we get Sentinels, and they each have their own weapon types, except of course the Flood. But unless they get close combat, they don't have weapons. They start flinging their tentacles at you, kind of thing. And then, of course, the spores are trying to... Once your shield is down, trying to eat you, essentially. And it's like I think they did a lot, and they were able to cram a lot in such a small game that from a studio at this point no one ever heard of. It wasn't a big name. It was a shot in the dark for Microsoft. They needed a home run to make people want to buy their Xbox console. They're new to the market. Sony's already there. Sega was still there at the time, and Nintendo. They were all the big three.
And one thing too, one thing I think we should touch on is I might be completely wrong in this thing. I might be completely misremembering. I mean, it was 20 years ago, but I will say that Halo, not like we've said, Halo really paved the foundation for console FPS and competitive play.
Yeah.
But in that same regard, I can't think of a time where, I mean, because literally I would hear about competitive tournaments. We would have LAN parties. We would hear about people holding tournaments for prizes where people would go and compete and play in 16-player matches with elimination, round robin, etc., loser pool, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And at the time, really, that space was just filled by like Quake and PC games. That was the elitist, the huge LAN parties with, we're talking, those white tables benched out with like 100 PCs in these large auditorium areas. But Halo opened up a space for console and was showing the world that they had a competitive scene, and that became, I mean, if anything, some of the first real esports to play online. Across with, you're looking at stuff like Quake on the PC scene.
And I think I want to mention that, like you said, I think that was. I don't remember. We didn't really have like Mario Kart tournaments or anything at that point. But I remember driving to Corpus Christi, and I think it was me or Stefan, I think, went once, and maybe Sevi. But I know
we probably had Smash ones, right? Smash tournaments?
They had Smash tournaments because of the 64. That was starting to get big.
Yeah,
but I remember driving to Corpus because there was a place Stefan and Sevi would buy like Magic cards from, and they were holding Halo tournaments every other weekend. And I think I went to like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, I remember Justin would also compete in a lot of those too. I think he won like at the Texas Showdown. I remember being there. I think he came like in 3rd place or Texas Showdown. I think that was Halo 1 and 2 or something like that.
Yeah. See, I wish I was a little bit younger because then I could have gotten more time probably with Halo 2, because when Halo 2 came out, I was already in college. But I know with Halo 1, I did a couple of the ones in Corpus. I can't remember the name of the place, but I think I would get like, I'd always place top 5. I never got really too much higher than that because I couldn't focus any more time on it. And that's why, like, now I'm like, okay, I'm just kind of working and my kid and then doing all my edits, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to squeeze in at least an hour here and there to keep my skills up. But it's like, I think this game set it to where gamers found a real community. Yes, we had Smash Brothers, and say we maybe got a small community growing there, but then it was like, oh, you play Halo or Smash. Now you got like all these people in this gamer world that's like, okay, like we're all gonna kind of band together. We're all gonna kind of do our thing and just have fun. That's what it was. Yep. At the end of the day, it's just hanging out with your friends and having fun, whether it's Smash, or Halo. But I really think Halo is the one that kind of like everybody knows it. Like my co-host from my podcast, he doesn't play video games, but he knows what Halo is. He knows who the Master Chief and Cortana are. He's never played it, but he's like, I know who they are because it's so much out there.
For sure. I think Halo became synonymous with the Xbox franchise, much like how you look at, Final Fantasy with PlayStation. And I mean, Final Fantasy has a lot of other exclusives that are definitely synonymous with the platform, but I would say Halo is definitely, Halo, in my mind, Xbox is green because Master Chief wears green. That's how I see it.
And then you got didn't they come out with that green, the Halo Xbox later? The green, like, see-through kind of looking one?
Heck yeah, they did, because I own one.
I want that one so bad.
And for the Xbox 360, I think it was the Halo 4 where they made that see-through version where it was all like blue and silver. I have that version too.
See, I have the Xbox One version of that. And then I have the Gears of War Xbox X. But yeah, I've been wanting to go back and collect all the like Master Chief ones because I'm like, I want all of these. One day I'm gonna do that.
My favorite controller is that I think for Halo 4 when they released, how they were doing, Chief versus Locke and all that crap. I didn't really care about the Locke thing, but I definitely got that green, that olive drab controller with that like burnt orange control, the Master Chief edition.
Yes.
That controller is my favorite controller that I've ever owned. I hope they release like a Series X version of it with Infinite. That would be so amazing. But I doubt they will. I mean, I hope so.
I think they'll do something like I really do. So
maybe I can customize one. Microsoft offers the ability to like make your own custom controllers, right, or something.
Something like that, yeah. Because I think they do like customization on everything like that, basically.
You gotta look
Like,
into that.
I know this. I want to play. I want more. I definitely want more and more Halo. So overall, so out of 1 out of 10, because I want to. Let's get going on this one.
10.
Where do 10? I don't even get to finish the question.
I love this game. All right, it's good. I like it. I like everything about it. I know it has its quirks, but for me, nostalgia be damned. I give it a 10.
And I can't say anything. I give it a 10 too, so I can't even say shit to it. And again, guys, this is a retrospect review, and I know there's nostalgia to this, but at the end of the day, this game still hits a lot of points that I love on it. I would say if I could go back in there, and I'm sure if I looked, the controllers you could adjust to make them more of like what Call of Duty are and all these other first-person shooters. So I'm not going to even hold that against it. And at the end of the day, after like the first or second mission, I was already used to it. So I'm like, okay, I'm back in the groove now. And
For sure.
There's nothing really bad. It has a good story. And I think the only thing I really laugh at is how little Master Chief talks. I forgot how little he talks. It's like 7 lines, I think, or 8 lines. Yeah,
because I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we even learned that, the Chief's name is John, throughout the whole game on the first game. I think everybody everywhere just calls him Chief, Cortana, Keys, everybody. I don't know if anybody ever uses his name.
I don't think so. Not in the first one, they don't, because you don't really get
sure.
You don't get anything until you get more of a story in Halo 2 and 3 where they start calling him John a little bit. And that's only Cortana that ever really mentions his name.
The books came out, the Fall of Reach, and you learn about his origin, Yeah, but I don't think they ever used his name. He was just meant to be the guy behind a visor.
It was, and I think that's where I want to comment on this real quick. I think that's what they did right. A faceless hero, so you could immerse yourself as that hero. You don't know what we don't care about his skin color. We don't care about anything. We just know he's a guy in a suit. Yep. And cool, I can be Master Chief. You can be Master Chief. Anyone can be Master Chief because you don't ever see his face. And I think that's one thing. Even though in a legendary ending of Halo 4 you see his eye, I think that is one thing we've sold. Yes, we know what he kind of looks like from the books, but in the bitter end of it all, we still don't know what he looks like. We could all be Master Chief.
Yeah, some people have done some pretty amazing aging work with, they've taken pretty much from the animated series that they released a few years ago, The Fall of Reach, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. It is, at least to my knowledge, I've read the book and I've seen it. It is one of the closest, almost one-to-one comparison to the events that occur in the book, The Fall of Reach.
Yeah.
And you see John as a young kid, and they took what he looked like as a kid and aged him to what he might look like now.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the closest we'll ever get to maybe seeing what the Chief might look like. But I agree, none of that matters.
It's us. The player is the Master Chief, no matter what. I like that we, in Call of Duty and Nintendo 64's GoldenEye, you know who the character is. You know what he looks like.
Even though most of the time we took on the roles of Red versus Blue, and somebody was Church, somebody was Bishop, all these random dumb names.
Sarge, Donut.
Yep. Yeah, you played Sarge a lot, I think. Right?
I was always Sarge because I loved how it was just, Simmons, get over here. He was just barking at everybody. And even though no one listened to him, and I'm like, yeah, it's gotta be no one listens. I don't care.
I love that show.
It was such a good show, and it's still going. I just don't watch it anymore.
Yeah, they're doing the remastered right now. I think they've released so far up to season 10 or 11 now.
Yeah,
they're gonna do all of them. And they've remastered them to HD and stuff. They're doing some good stuff.
For sure. I mean, yeah, I'm excited. But I mean, of course, and look at that. Just like that though, Halo also brought on machinima and everything else essentially.
Yeah,
and it's like,
exactly.
Once you start really thinking, you can see where all these little paths from Halo go and where they connect to.
We had no choice.
So, but yeah, guys. On that note, let me know what y'all think down below in the comments. Hopefully, you enjoyed this gameplay that we were doing. There's probably a lot of deaths while we were doing this, but again, guys, this is our retrospect review of Halo 1. Next time will be Halo 2. Hopefully, y'all enjoy. And I'll be honest, that's one I haven't played as much, so I am curious what it's going to be like jumping back into the reins of that one. But on that note, I'm Aaron. That's Duffy. And this is Get Your Geek On, guys. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and stay geeky. Later.
See ya.